Yeah, hi guys. It's me Jay. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what the goings on France right now with the fire in Notre Dame. Well, in America we say Notre Dame, but in France it's Notre Dame. But yeah, this is just crazy. I mean, what happened? I don't know if it was the ISIS. Well, there's no more ISIS, but Islamic attack or what it was. But this is a shame because this cathedral um, has existed since the 12th century in France. And France, of course, plays a pivotal role in the current culture war between Western civilization and the Islamic world. So maybe they could be trying to burn it down because of what happens in Australia. New Zealand, and it could be probably there could be a probably retaliation, or it could just be another random attack on a holy place. You know, this has been happening a lot, and a lot of people also been saying too that why is the Notre Dame attack any worse than what's been going on in Louisiana? All this racially motivated church burnings, you know, by white supremacist mobs in Louisiana. Why is all this attention being paid to this cathedral? I mean, yes, it's a very old cathedral, and it's part of a central part of Western civilization and the Catholic faith in the West. And people look at France as like I said, the defenders of Western civilization against Islam because of the Battle of Poitiers. Look that famous battle up with Charlemagne's grandfather, Charles the Great, in I think it's the 740s, in which he chased the Moors out of southern France and basically saved Christian civilization, because if it was not for him, France would have been Islamicized. So when this happened, people automatically thought to themselves to blame the Muslims, but we don't know if it was the Muslims. A lot of protesting against Macron's regime has been going on in France with the Yellow Vest movement. So it could have been them, and who knows? It could have been a far right group that's opposed to Emmanuel Macron. You know, remember? I think it was back in 2016 or 2017, in which Marie Le Pen ran and she lost, and there was a real big far right motivation in France, the same way that's been in England with the Brexit, and the United States with the election of Donald Trump, and New Zealand with this guy, and you know, the far right, and Israel re-electing Netanyahu. So the far right is on the move everywhere in the world. The far right, even in Brazil, they elected Jair Bolsonaro. In Venezuela right now, they're trying to overthrow the leftist revolutionary regime in favor of a right-wing regime. So the far right is on the move. This is like the 1930s with the rise of Hitler and Mussolini and Franco. This is just like that, but instead of communism as the boogeyman, it's immigration, it's demographic shift. And this is causing racial upstrikes and racial wars everywhere in the world, from Louisiana to France to Christchurch, New Zealand, to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world, we're seeing this kind of racial strife and political strife between far left and far right. We're at a crossroads, and to me, I think millennials in the United States, at least, are not really prepared for a war. They're not prepared for a war with the far right that what we had in what we, but our great grandparents had during World War II. World War II is the most important war in the history of the world, because if guys like Hitler and Franco and Mussolini and the Japanese Imperial Army would have succeeded, we wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys today. And we'd all be under fascist rule in the world. North Africa would have been overtaken by fascist Italy. Eastern Europe and Asia probably would have been overtaken by Hitler. That was a pivotal moment. Some would say the Battle of Poitiers or the Battle of Tours with Charles Martel was a pivotal moment for Western civilization. I wouldn't say that, because to me, I look at it this way. The Moors, they were keeping Western civilization alive. They were keeping Aristotelian logic, and they were keeping the Greco-Roman writings alive, while the church suppressed it, at least in the West. The Catholic Church didn't allow what they call pagan writings to be taught in their academies, with the writings of their Greco-Roman ancestors. It was the Moors and the Arabs, the Moors in Spain and the Arabs in Baghdad, that were keeping this stuff alive and expounding on it. And now today we don't consider Arabs or North Africans a part of Western civilization. We consider them the enemy of Western civilization, and we consider them the invaders of Europe, trying to impose Sharia law in places like France. And, I had this discussion before when France had their attack in 2015 at Charlie Hebdo, and everybody was putting up French flags as their avatar. And I said, the reason why the far right is on the rise in France and on the rise in Germany and on the rise in the United States and Australia and all over the Western world is because people don't want to see Islam coming to their shores. They're afraid of Islam, but they don't really look at it the way that it used to be. Like right now, here in the United States, on television, the TV show Game of Thrones is very popular. And in Game of Thrones, there's this group called the White Walkers. And these White Walkers are trying to be kept at bay by all the members of Westeros. The place of Game of Thrones. Forgive my ignorance. I'm trying to make a comparison of of Game of Thrones and the real world, but I don't really know Game of Thrones like that. I know it in passing, But from what I understand, they're trying to keep these White Walkers at bay, and this is kind of sort of like how a lot of people see the Muslim immigration to Europe too. It's like these Muslims are coming in, they're trying to change the laws of Europe, they're trying to Islamicize Europe and Islamicize the West. And it's a clash of civilizations. But it is in a sense, but it isn't though, because here in the United States, we always had experience with immigrants. You know, we had immigrants from Italy, immigrants from Eastern Europe, immigrants from Central and South America, from Asia, and we were able to meld them into one nationality, American. In Europe, in Australia, they had a similar thing happen. In New Zealand, same thing. But in Europe, European countries, England, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, they never really had to deal with this. They were homogeneous when it came to their ethnic makeup. Now, you have people from Eastern Europe, people from the Middle East, especially coming in with different kinds of laws. And I always say, if you come into a country with a certain laws, you should live by those laws, unless you want to establish settler colonies, like in the case with Israel, or the case with South Africa, or the case with Zimbabwe. And then when you do something like that, you're going to automatically have ethnic conflict like in those countries. So if Muslim people here come into France or come into Spain or come into Italy or Germany and they start, wanting imposing Sharia law, that's bullshit, man. You know what I mean? Like the French people, the Italian people, the British people, the Germans, they have the right to say, you can have your religion, you can have your laws and stuff, but you cannot impose your laws on us. You can't make our foods, our ethnic foods that may involve pork or whatever, illegal in our own countries. You cannot make mixing of men and women illegal in our countries. This is part of mixing of men and women. It's a part of Western civilization. Many Jewish people who are Orthodox Jewish people live in Western countries. They live in Britain, they live in France, they live in the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and they don't impose their will on other people. See, the problem is not you living by your laws, not you wearing a hijab or you wearing a burqa or anything like that. It's you trying to tell other people that that they have to wear it. Like you're a guest in our society. We're not coming to Iran or to Saudi Arabia or to Kuwait or or whatever that are their strict Sharia law telling you have to dress in our Western ways. And when we were doing that in colonial days, when France was taking over Morocco and England was taking over Pakistan and Belgium was taking over the Congo, that was fucked up too. And that we were wrong. Our society, our Western society was wrong for that. And we paid the heavy price. We're still paying the price now for colonialism. But don't act so high and mighty and so like your civilization never done that. Hey, Afghanistan was Buddhist before it was Islamic. Pakistan was Hindu and Buddhist before it was Islamic. Hell, half the Middle East was Christian at one time. And obviously Islamization and Islamic civilization knocked that out. So they've done their fair share of conquering as we have done ours. Nobody's perfect. You know what I mean? But to burn down a church, a holy site that has stood for thousands of years, just to make a point that you've conceded religious dominance over Christian, the Christian country, the Catholic country of France, that's bullshit. But so it is also bullshit that that the U.S. media that is in an uproar about France refuses to cover these Louisiana church bombings that unfortunately is a part of the American tradition of racism towards African Americans, that churches have always been burnt, black churches have always been burnt down and been targets of racial violence, but they want to, the right wing wants to shift the focus to what they perceive as Islamic radicals away from right-wing white radicals that are in the same league as the Islamic radicals. Because, hey, the wars of Islam, the wars that Islam lost, the fall of Baghdad in 1258, and the wars that they lost to Europe, during World War II, and the wars that they've lost to Israel, like the 6-Day War, they have to get over that too. But the right wing here in the United States has to get over the Civil War. And both these types of militants are living in the past. There's never going to be another caliphate in the Middle East that was ruling the Middle East like the Abbasid Caliphate or the Umayyad Caliphate. And there is never going to be a freaking, another rise of the South with slavery. So burning down someone's church, whether it be in France, in Notre Dame, or in Louisiana, a black church in Louisiana, is complete bullshit. It's somebody's house of worship, somebody's God. You don't do things like that. Get it together, guys. Whether you're on the Islamic side or the alt-right side, you're completely ramped up by the internet. You're completely ramped up by psychopaths that tell us that we're in a war of civilizations, a war of races between Islam and Christianity, black people and white people. You know what I mean? It's just... I just can't anymore. You know what I mean? Like, the world is not Game of Thrones. It's not the Targaryens versus the Lannisters. Get it together. This is real life. This is people's actual houses of worship. I'm sick to death of seeing this kind of stuff, man. I mean, really, like, and it's always politicized, whether it be by the right, that says, oh, well, we got to stop Islam, or the left. Well, white men are the number one cause of terror in the world. Nazism, the alt right. And it's true on both ends. There has been a rise of right-wing radical politics in the United States and in the Western world, but there's also been a rise of Islamic fundamentalism around the world. So, later, guys, whether it's Islamic fundamentalism or whether it's right-wing terrorism here in the United States, stop living in the past. Stop thinking about the Crusades or the Civil War. You could think about it and study it as history, but trying to avenge it by, in the modern days, thinking that you're a crusader or that you're that you're Robert E. Lee or that you're Saladin. Come on, that's bullshit, guys. Get over that already. You can study it as history and stuff. It's very interesting, the Crusades and the reconquest of Spain and the Civil War and World War II. All that stuff is interesting, but don't take it to another level where you become an actor in it and you feel like it's your role to avenge that, by taking action, burning someone's church down, or or shooting someone in a synagogue, or shooting someone in a church, like in Charleston in 2015. Nobody deserves that to happen to them in their place of worship, period.